Hi, everybody. This is Elle, and you're listening to Elle Speaks. If you're like me and you followed the Alec Murdaugh murder trial, you may be wondering what happened as far as Alec's assets and the properties that he owned, and have the victims of the financial crimes gotten any of their money back. Now, I did read that the law firm ended up filing bankruptcy, that the law firm no longer exists. It shut down and reestablished itself because it did pay out a lot of money, to some of Alec Murdaugh's victims. Now, let's start at the beginning, right? So, the prosecution, 8 months before Alec Murdaugh was charged with murder, Alec was already charged with financial crimes. And so the prosecution asked the state of South Carolina to place Alec Murdaugh's assets into receivership. And when assets go into a receivership through the court will appoint attorneys or a law firm, so to speak, to act as receivers of the assets. And the receivers decide what the money can be spent on. Alec Murdaugh's defense team, Harpootlian and Griffin, in September, just last month, asked the court if the receivership could be moved from the current receivers to the federal government. The defense is saying, Alec Murdaugh's defense is saying, the federal government will do what the receivership appointed by the state is doing for free. So far, the receivers have received $641,000 for their work on going through Alec Murdaugh's assets and his property and deciding its distribution. There's a third receiver that's about to join the team, but the receivers told the court that they're not charging the standard 40% fee, that they're actually doing this at a discount, and, that Alec himself charged the standard rate of 40% to his own clients when he was an attorney. So for these two attorneys, to have made $641,000, listen, I believe that attorneys, and everyone who works, I believe people should get paid for the work that they do. And Alec's financial crimes span 10 years, 2011 to 2021. Alec pled guilty to all 22 financial crimes that the federal government charged him with, including wire fraud, bank fraud, conspiracy to commit wire fraud and bank fraud. And as you know, people like the banker, Russell Lafitte, that entire 10 years helped Alec to funnel a lot of money into Alec's pockets that should not have been in Alec's pockets. Now, Alec's defense team says that, the feds will do this for free. And so the receiver shot back and wanted to know how much the defense had received for representing Alec Murdaugh. And the defense, Harpootlian, says, listen, we've said it before. We did not decide to defend Alec Murdaugh for money. Side note, Alec's defense team, the prosecutors in this case, they all just left a true crime event in Florida. One could argue that the publicity alone from representing Alec Murdaugh could make Harpootlian and Griffin household names, and that they'll get a lot of exposure, and that they'll get clients, and that they'll make money from representing Alec Murdaugh. They're already at true crime conventions. Who knows what's next? Jodi Arias says one of her defense attorneys wrote a book after her conviction. So this is a key detail. Alec Murdaugh's defense team had asked the receivers for more money for Alec's appeal, and the receivers denied that money. No money, they said, for Alec's appeal. And the receivers are telling the court that the real reason that Alec Murdaugh's defense team wants the receivership moved to the federal government is so that the defense can get more money to fight Alec's appeal. And as we know now, Alec is stating that he wants a new trial. Now, Alec's lawyers filed paperwork that stated that Alec, his assets totaled a little over $1 million, but did not provide anything more specific than that. So in November 2021, when Alec was ordered to turn over his assets, we know that the estate where Maggie and Paul would eventually be murdered at had not been sold. So the house, the estate sold for $3.9 million. And I do say estate because there's a hunting lodge, it sleeps 15 people, there are 13 dog kennels. It really, really, really does sound like an awesome property. Now, $2.7 million of the proceeds from selling the estate will go to Mallory Beach's family for the boat crash. You all probably know, if you've been following this, that Mallory Beach is the young woman, and she was one of 4 teenagers in a boat with Paul Murdaugh driving the boat, and it sounds like he was just out of this world drunk. And Mallory Beach, unfortunately lost her life. So $2.7 million of the $3.9 million will go to the Beach family and to 2 of the survivors on the boat. The third survivor on the boat will get $100,000 from the proceeds of the estate. What about Buster? I've been wondering, what about Buster? Because Alec pled guilty to all 22 of the financial crimes that he was charged with federally. And considering that Alec's theft reached, into the millions, I really wondered if Buster would receive anything monetarily. And I think that we can all agree that Buster lost all of his immediate family when his mother and brother were murdered and his father was convicted of that murder. Aunts, uncles, cousins, girlfriend, best friend, none of that replaces, your closest family members. On the other hand, Buster was originally named as a defendant in the lawsuit by the Beach family. Mark Tinsley, the Beach family's attorney, originally named Buster in the lawsuit because Buster gave his younger brother Paul an ID, and I don't think any of us can deny that Paul Murdaugh's family, knew that he liked to drink too much. And so here it is, Buster gives his younger brother his ID. And later, the state says this boat crash was the whole motive for Alec Murdaugh murdering Paul and murdering Maggie. Now, some of the items in the house, like the furniture and pictures on the wall and that sort of thing, those things are being auctioned off. And the proceeds from the auction go into a settlement fund for creditors and for victims. And there's almost $300,000 in that settlement fund. Well, Buster received $530,000 from the sale of the property where his mother and his brother were murdered. So Buster, I guess we could say, is not going to come out of this flat broke. So I don't know what's going on with his career. I do know he was in law school, but, he does get $530,000. And when Alec Murdaugh pled guilty to wire fraud and to bank fraud and conspiracy to commit bank fraud. Well, conspiracy to commit bank fraud carries up to 30 years. Bank fraud up to 20 years. 2 counts of wire fraud counts up to 30, is punishable by up to 20 or 30 years. So Alec Murdaugh, pleading guilty, I think it was triage. I think it was the biggest thing that I'm facing is life in prison for double murder. And definitely I can see that Alec wanted his son Buster to have some money. So that's what we know. Buster got $530,000 from the sale of the estate. The estate sold for $3.9 million, and the Beach family got $2.7 million. I do, wonder, and I want to know what you all think. Should Buster have gotten any of the proceeds, considering that all of the victims of his father's financial crimes and their creditors have not been paid off? And what do you all think about the receivers getting $640,000 so far at a discount? And do you think that the real reason that Alec Murdaugh's defense team is asking for the receivership to be moved from the state into federal hands is because the feds would do for free what it's taken $640,000 for the receivers to do so far? Or do you think that the receivers hit the nail on the head when they said that what the defense really, really wants? The defense really wants to get at some of the money in the receivership for Alec Murdaugh's defense. This is Elle, and thank you all for listening to Elle Speaks, and I'll try and keep you updated.